we're going to go into some reading. And this is from Peeling the Onion. And we're going to talk about pages 6 through 11 for those of you that are following along. And we're going to start with relationship addiction, and then it's going to talk about relationship avoidance. Jeremiah, wherever he is out there, is working on getting some readers. And so whoever the first reader is, I'm going to ask that you read the first blue box, those 2 paragraphs.
All right, so I have Toto to go ahead and read. Let me unmute you. Hang on. All right, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Many people join the Fellowship of Codependency Anonymous after relationship had ended painfully. Some have a pattern of serial relationships, while others stay in relationship even if physical and emotional abuse occur. Some jump into new relationships in an attempt to avoid feelings, pain, rather than working on issues with a current partner. Some people seek happiness outside the relationship through emotional infidelity or sexual acting out. Others avoid relationship by immersing themselves in activities or engage in different addictive behavior. Our fear of intimacy or failure, some of us continue to look for the perfect soulmate, even in currently in a committed relationship. We may be romantically involved with more than one partner. Some of us may engage in several of these behaviors simultaneously. These patterns of living can be classified as addictions, all driven by our codependency, fears of not being enough. In love addiction, we are hooked on being in love and stuck in the illusion of romance. We sometimes have several relationships at the same time and live in presidial intimacy with our partners, preventing us from having a true intimate and committed relationship with one partner. We search for our soulmate to complete us. Lost in a romantic fantasy, we often ignore warning signs that choose partners who are emotionally available. We take our identity from our relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Perfect and believe we look good to the world. We use sex to instantly fall in love. We deceive ourselves into believing we are in love with our sexual partner.
Thank you, Soto.
Thank you, Soto.
You're welcome.
Okay, so what I would like everyone to do is identify the portion of this part of the reading, relationship addiction, fear of not being enough, and find at least one piece that, well, if you identify with something in here, find one piece of that and write it down. And I'm going to just leave a minute for you guys to do that. So we're going to go through as we go through this reading, we're going to take a minute for you to find a piece of it that you can identify with. And when we do the breakout rooms, then we'll all have a chance to share and go around and talk about what we identified with. So in our first step, what we're looking for is our powerlessness and unmanageability around relationship addiction, love addiction, and avoidance. Okay, we're going to go on to the second one. So, yes. Okay, so fear of our feelings. Jeremiah, do you have a reader for us?
Let me unmute Jean K. Go ahead and unmute.
Is there a way to
Jean,
make
are you-
that bigger or enlarge it, Linda?
Yes, hello, I'm Jean. Go ahead, Christina. Did you want to say something, Christina?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could get any larger for our readers, but if not, then that's
I
okay.
really can't right now.
Okay.
All right, where do I start reading?
Jean, just go ahead and read Fear of Our Feelings. In the
All right, I'm Jean. I'm still codependent.
Hi, Jean.
Hi, Jean.
Fear of our feelings. We may engage in inappropriate behaviors to avoid painful and overwhelming feelings. In sex addiction, we may use sexual acts such as extramarital affairs, going to strip clubs, use of porn, or excessive masturbation rather than experiencing our feelings. As shame-based adults, we fear true intimacy, afraid of being engulfed or controlled by our partner. Instead, through sexually acting out, we control and manipulate others. We may view others or our partners as sexual objects or conquests and use them to get a sexual fix. The concept of sexuality is a healthy God-given gift and method for expressing intimacy in heartbreakingly absent, the concept of sexuality is a healthy God-given gift and method for expressing intimacy is heartbreakingly absent in our lives. Many of us as children or adults endured inappropriate boundary violations of a sexual nature, often by someone we loved and trusted. Out of fear, we continue to accept and excuse these types of violations. We believe as long as we have a sexual relationship with a partner, we will not be abandoned. Being sexually addictive is a means to get attention, to gain a sense of worth, or to create an illusion of intimacy or power. Accepting or giving physical and emotional abuse provides excitement and feels better than not having a partner. Some of us argue and create drama as a precursor to getting a high from make-up sex.
Thank you, Jean.
Thanks, Jean. Okay, so we're going to just stay on this page for a minute, and I want to just invite everybody to identify something on this page that you can identify with. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next page. Fear of being alone. Jeremiah, can you get us a reader?
Let me get somebody. Ari, I'm going to ask you to unmute. You can go ahead and read.
Fear of being alone. Fear of being alone. In relationship addiction, we stay in the relationship no matter how unsatisfying, because we cannot tolerate being alone. We are afraid of change, do not know how to let go, or how to move on with our lives unless we have another relationship lined up. If our partner ends the relationship, we are willing to do anything to get him or her back. We may threaten, beg, or use sex to manipulate. If we cannot change our partner's mind, We get into another relationship as soon as possible. We may, in desperation, even stay in dangerously abusive relationships to avoid being alone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I just got a request in the chat to slow down so that people can think about this and contemplate a little bit. We don't really have time in the workshop if we want to get to all the other activities to do this. So, you know, like I said before, we're just kind of poking at it right now and just doing some exploring and observing, but I want to invite everybody to do deeper work around this stuff with your support group and your sponsor. But we are gonna go ahead and take a minute here to look at fear of being alone and identify something in there that you can relate to. And this is being recorded too, so you could go back and listen to the recording and then pause it where you want to. Okay, let's go ahead. Thank you. Relationship avoidance. Jeremiah, you wanna
Okay,
put your-
let me get Mary Beth. You can unmute yourself and go ahead and start reading, Mary Beth. Are you there? Ah, uh-oh. Can you unmute yourself?
Can someone unmute her?
I'm unmuted. Okay.
Okay. Hi, Mary
Oh,
Beth.
did I accidentally?
Hi, Mary Beth here. Codependent. A relationship avoidance. Codependence is a disease that deteriorates our souls. As we continue peeling the layers, some of us discover that avoiding relationships is a survival tool we have used to avoid social, sexual, and emotional intimacy with ourselves and others. Avoidance or codependent anorexia is a way that we starve our natural desires for love, sex, and relationships. Love anorexia. Love anorexia is when we avoid experiencing self-love or receiving the love that God and others offer. As children, some of us were not nurtured or validated. We did not feel loved or cherished. We lacked healthy self-esteem. Some of us experienced enmeshment with caregivers and did not learn how to set boundaries. We did not learn that our wants, needs, and emotions were important. Whereas love addicts look for a soulmate to feel complete, love anorectics avoid love. There is a false belief that we are not enough. Love anorectics avoid feelings of shame by denying feelings, natural feelings, and the desire for healthy, intimate, loving relationships.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Thanks, Mary Beth. So take a moment, everybody, and identify something in this part of the reading that you relate to. Okay, we're going to go on. Sexual anorexia.
Sexual anorexia. I see.
Hello, I'm Irene. I'm a codependent.
Hi, Irene.
Hi. Sexual anorexia. Sexual anorexia exists when we avoid experiencing or expressing our God-given gift of natural human sexuality. Some of us were overtly or covertly sexually abused as children. Some of us who were shamed by our natural sexual curiosity, our sexual identity, or our body image. Where sex addicts use sex as a tool to avoid intimacy or to numb feelings. Sex anorexics avoid sexual relationships because we fear intimacy or we're attempting to stifle unresolved childhood shame for regarding sexuality. Sexual anorexics deny natural feelings and desires for healthy, intimate sexual relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene.
Thanks, Irene. Okay, we're going to leave a minute for people to see what they relate to and write that down. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to relationship anorexia.
Erica.
Well, 1 second, Jeremiah. I just want to say,
Oh.
I don't think I was really clear on this before, but you know, like pretty much all of these apply to me. It's not like we have to just pick one. You know, I see a lot of this stuff as it's like just because my drug of choice was meth doesn't mean I wouldn't smoke pot or also drink, you know. It's like these are just medicators, and so you may or may not relate to any or all of them in your own codependence. So that, you know, I just wanted to say that. So go ahead, Jeremiah.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Erica, you can unmute yourself and read relationship anorexia.
Jeremiah, are you able to unmute them?
Are you-
Because they can't.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
okay.
Okay, hi, Erica.
Hi, Erica.
Hi. Relationship anorexia. Relationship anorexia exists when we avoid engaging in intimate relationships with ourselves, others, or the God of our understanding. As children, we didn't experience limits or boundaries, nor did we learn how to have healthy relationships. As relationship addicts, we attach ourselves to others to avoid being alone or feeling inner pain. As relationship anorectics, we may isolate or conversely feel compelled to seek out groups to avoid being alone. We avoid the possibility of being shamed or hurt by denying natural feelings and desires for healthy, intimate, emotional relationships.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Okay, so we'll leave a minute for everyone to write something down. Okay, we're ready to go to the next one. All right, fear of intimacy.
Nancy, I've asked you to unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Sorry, I accidentally remuted you.
Okay, thank you. Fear of intimacy. Intimate feelings are those that are most deeply personal. From infancy, these feelings guided us as we attempted to get our needs met. If our caregivers couldn't respond to our needs, we concluded that our needs and the feelings driving those needs were a mistake. Finally, we concluded that we must be a mistake. The resulting toxic shame is profound and painful. To avoid experiencing our deepest feelings, we develop dysfunctional patterns of behavior. We believe these feelings may actually cause us to die. This is the terror of intimacy.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you,
Nancy. Okay, so we'll just leave a minute for everybody to reflect on that and write down what you identify with. Step 2, and it's being able to identify the insanity in love addiction and love avoidance, where we are creating these fantasy stories and projecting all of this onto people without really paying attention to, without being honest with ourselves about their traits or their humanity, and instead making up the fantasy story that fixes how we feel. This was super important part of my being able to stop doing it. You know, I've got to first admit that I'm powerless over it, and that it makes my life unmanageable. And then I've got to really be able to surrender the insanity around it, and you know, believe that my higher power can restore me to sanity. So this is how we do that process, is we really take a look at it. So this is my example, and then you guys are going to have a chance to do your own. So as we're going through here, you can get started on your paper too, but this is the first phase that this is just my experience around this. So you guys might cycle different. You may have a different template for it. Your fantasy may look very different from mine, but this is my drug of choice right here, my love addiction partner mask. So the fantasy stories in my love addiction story is, you love me, and the feeling that creates for me is just this warmth in my heart. I mean, I feel elated. I am safe. I feel joyful. You make me so happy. That thought creates feelings of being appreciated and valued. So it's the thoughts that I'm making up that are creating the feelings. It may or may not have anything to do with how the other person is behaving or acting or what their intention is. It's the thoughts that I'm focused on and mustering up and going over and ruminating about and obsessing about that's making me have feelings. I'm forcing myself out of feelings that I don't want into feelings that do feel better. So I'm fixing my feelings and avoiding other feelings. So the fantasy story is, I'm special, so I feel wanted. You will never leave me, so I feel connected. I matter is supplying safety. You're my soulmate, so I have this sense of togetherness and unity. You will never lie to me. Like, I can't imagine you ever lying to me. Like, you're so pure, you know, but I feel adored. You will always love me. I feel relief from the pain of abandonment, and the fear of abandonment. I feel special. I'm 1 in a million. I feel needed. You're my everything. Gets me high. So that's just some of the language that I use to tap into the serotonin and the dopamine around the feelings that I'm creating in my head. But other people might have a different story. And this is just one example. This is my drug of choice that, like, specifically I used with Ken a lot. But I vacillate between different drugs. So another fantasy story, you know, might look like, you need me so much, you know, I'm so good for you, I'm so useful to you, I would be so good for you. And so some of that might be caretaking that we're working on, you know, creating a fantasy around our our ability to caretake this person, or you know, be needed, be special, be important, you know. So everybody's got their own language. So Linda, can you flip down one page? Okay, on the worksheet that I did for this in person, then this would be your own little worksheet. So everybody on your own piece of paper, basically, this is your piece of work to do, is create your fantasy stories and then the feelings that are created with those fantasy stories, and what that face looks like. What mask are you putting on that person? Are you putting a mask of they're really needy and they need me? Are you putting a mask on them of, oh, you're so perfect and you can take care of me? Or are you putting a mask of, oh my God, I can trust you? Whatever that mask is, the positive fantasy mask. And, you know, and how do you label that person? You know, I called it, you know, he's just Mr. Perfect, or my soulmate, or you know, 1 in a million, or whatever. So we're going to leave some time for people to write down their own fantasy stories that they identify with. We're going to flip the screen back up so that you guys can see my examples. Okay, there's all my dirty laundry. So you guys have some ideas of what it is that we're trying to get to here, and how we are medicating on how we put a mask on other people and deny the reality of who that person is in order to fix our feelings. So let's just leave, like, I don't know, 5 minutes for this. How about 3 minutes?
All right, I'll time it.
Okay, thank you. I just want to pop in again and say that this might not be on a partner that you do this with. It may be a friend. It may be your mom. It may be your children. We can be love addicted to anybody. You know, my hardest love addiction bottoms have been my romantic partners. So that's where I focus a lot of my energy. But I've done it with friends. I've done it with sisters. I've done it with, you know, pretty much anyone that I have an intimate relationship with. So lucky them.
time.
Okay, thanks, Lori.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's switch the slide down. Okay, so now I want you guys to take a look at the negative fantasy. So here's where I switch drugs and go into, you know, I can't get high anymore. This person's behavior, or you know, the you know, out of reality, the out of reality of my fantasy is shattered. My denial becomes shattered, and the flood of the shame comes back, and this person's no longer perfect. They're no longer fixing me, and I'm outraged. And so now I'm building a case against them, and I do this by making them the villain. So my fantasy stories around my negative partner fantasy is, you don't love me, I can't trust you, you are selfish, I don't even know you, you're a liar, I don't need you, it's all your fault, you're a player, you don't care, you're a bad person, I can't even believe I'm with you. So this person that I totally put up on this pedestal, now I am knocking them off and stripping them of any humanity. The feelings that I'm creating with all of that, or that are coming up and I'm powerless over around all that, what I'm really trying to create in all that is a big one-up. For me, I'm raging and building a case. But along with that big one-up comes all these feelings of pain and anguish. I'm devalued, I'm ashamed, I'm abandoned, I'm alone, I'm fearful. All this stuff was already there before I ever met this person, right? But it's all coming flooding back in because my fantasy's not working anymore. Suspicion and paranoia, I'm discarded, I'm powerless, I feel desperate, and I'm raging and I'm one up. And I'm trying to fix all these feelings with this villainization of somebody. And it might just be mild snarkiness, or range all the way to some of these really valuing attacks of character, like complete character assassination. So I want you guys to do your own worksheet and identify the fantasy stories, the thoughts that are the fantasy stories around the negative fantasy, and then the feelings that are coming up around that. And we'll take 3 more minutes. Okay, Lori?
Yes, 3
Thank
minutes.
you. Yeah.
time.
Great. Thanks, Lori.
Sure.
Okay, I just want to remind everybody to be gentle with yourself as you're doing this this digging and doing this piece of inventory for yourselves, because it can feel pretty yucky to discover some of this stuff. Although hopeful, that's how we figure out what we need to turn over to our higher power. So we're at 3 o'clock, 3:06, and we're gonna do another breakout. I hope that was a good exercise for you guys and you got some connection there and got to do some second step work. We're gonna go ahead and move on to a third step activity. And this is going back to the Peeling the Onion pamphlet. So we're going to look at codependent relationships compared to authentic relationships. And this is a powerful couple of pages in that pamphlet. I know that when I read it, still, even though I've read it before, when I read it, I'm like, ooh, yeah, me, yeah. And then I read the authentic side and I go, wow, really? Wow. I mean, it's very impactful because, we can learn in recovery what we're doing that doesn't work, but where do we find out what works? What do we aspire to do different, And so this is powerful stuff. So I'm going to go through and read it. What I want everyone to do is identify the ones that apply to you. And I want you to choose one in particular that we're going to do a little bit of work with after we get through reading through them. Okay? So, codependent relationships. Due to my dysfunctional upbringing, I gravitate towards emotionally unavailable, needy partners who will likely be addicted to drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, etc. But in authentic relationships, I am attracted to your thoughts, ideas, personality, sense of humor, the way you present yourself, and our common interests. So much healthier. In codependent relationships, I accept sex when I really want affection. I'm afraid you won't stay around if I don't give you what you want. In authentic relationships, because I am in recovery, I no longer rush into relationships. I want to develop a friendship first before taking the relationship to the next level. I take care of myself by building trust first. In codependent relationships, I talk with you for hours about our traumatic pasts. We both come from dysfunctional families. I feel as if I have known you all my life. You are my soulmate. Oh my God, that is me. In authentic relationships, I take my time getting to know you. I want to make sure you're emotionally available, capable of loving and respecting me, not just during the honeymoon phase, but consistently over a period of time. Codependent relationships. I want to spend all my free time with you. I blow off friends and family obligations. I feel incomplete without you. In authentic relationships, I value my time with friends and family and continue to pursue my interests and continue to pursue my interests. In addition, I look forward to the time we spend together. In codependent relationships, I put on a facade in order to gain your approval. I believe if you knew the real me, you would reject me. In authentic relationships, I am not afraid to be emotionally intimate with you. I'm willing to show you the real me. In codependent relationships, I quickly become enmeshed in your life. The more indispensable I am to you, the more secure I feel. I believe you won't leave me. In authentic relationships, I remain my own person. By practicing healthy boundaries and expressing my needs directly, I avoid being engulfed by you. In codependent relationships, together you and I make up a whole. When you're not around, I feel as if something is missing. In authentic relationships, we come together as two separate people who encourage each other's personal growth and process. In codependent relationships, I take my identity from you. I am preoccupied with all the details of your life, your friends, your work, how you spend your time away from me. In authentic relationships, I remain self-assured with my own identity. I value my accomplishments, make my own decisions, and approve of my behaviors. In codependent relationships, you become my primary focus. My happiness depends on you. You are my higher power. In authentic relationships, my happiness and joy are a result of the relationship I have with my higher power. Oh, yeah. My happiness and joy are a result of the relationship I have with my higher power. I am able to share my happiness with you. In codependent relationships, I fear being abandoned by you because as a child, someone I loved abandoned me. I'm afraid of being alone. In authentic relationships, I realize I am an adult capable of taking care of my needs. Therefore, I can never really be abandoned. My higher power is always present to love and guide me. In codependent relationships, I am jealous, possessive, and controlling. I listen to your phone conversations, read your email, and go through your pockets. I don't trust you. In authentic relationships, I turn my will and my life over to my higher power. I no longer have to be in charge. I accept that whatever happens in my life is for my ultimate good. I trust my higher power. In codependent relationships, I use whatever means necessary, including manipulating and evading, to get what I want from you. In authentic relationships, I am realistic about our relationship. I realize that a healthy relationship involves give and take, negotiation, and compromise. In codependent relationships, I am addicted to the chaos and drama in our relationship. It reminds me of growing up in my family of origin. When things are going well, I am waiting for the other shoe to drop. In authentic relationships, we share love and happiness. We value and appreciate the peaceful times in our lives. In codependent relationships, I am uncomfortable if you don't approve of what I am doing, wearing, or saying. In authentic relationships, I am okay with myself, character defects and all. I love and accept myself as I am. In codependent relationships, I focus on your negative traits and tell you how you should change. In authentic relationships, I focus on your positive qualities and accept your character defects. I remember why I fell in love with you. In codependent relationships, if our relationship ended, I would feel depressed, angry, hopeless, and scared. In order to avoid these feelings, I would desperately seek a replacement as soon as possible. I would blame you for the breakup. In authentic relationships, if our relationship ended, I would feel sad. Before getting into another relationship, I would take time to grieve the loss. To avoid making the same mistake again, I would try to figure out what went wrong. My self-worth would remain intact and I would still care about you. So those are some pretty big comparisons there, and I want everyone to take a minute and identify the ones that apply to you, but specifically find one that you relate to. So I'll just leave a minute for that. Okay. I'm going to share the one that I chose, which is the third one down. I talk with you for hours about our traumatic past. We both come from dysfunctional families. I feel as if I have known you all my life. You are my soulmate. That is definitely my drug of choice on both of these pages. One I have experienced the most insanity and the most pain around. So what I want you guys to do is identify the defects of character that come with that drug of choice for you. When you're acting in those behaviors, what defects of character are you in? And so just to remind you, I'm going to share what mine was. So when I'm in that behavior where I'm talking with someone for hours about our traumatic past and creating this fantasy story, and you know, I'm boundaryless. I have expectations. I'm putting expectations on, you know, this person is totally trustworthy. I feel like I've known you forever. I expect us to be together, stay together, for you to understand me, for you to listen, for me to feel important to you. I'm expecting that you feel the same way about me that I am, you know, that I'm feeling about you, that you're getting high, just like I'm getting high. That you can see inside of me, that you can read my mind almost. You know, I'm putting big expectations out there. I'm in fantasy. I'm also in impatience. I don't want to wait for any of that. That's a big buzzkill to have to get to know somebody. I want to just feel better. So, and I also want to fix and manage the feelings of fear of intimacy that I'm feeling. This might not be right. I'm getting to know somebody new and we might not click. You might not like me. I might be too this or might be too that. So I can medicate all of that fear and insecurity that I bring from my childhood, from my life, from my codependence, and I can medicate that with this big fantasy of, oh my gosh, we're just meant to be. So yeah, so I'm being impatient. I'm in self-abandonment. I have abandoned reality. I have abandoned my own requirement to get to know you, to check you out, to check out who you are, to see if there's any truth to what you're saying, or if you're just mirroring what I'm saying. So I get high and I feel better and you feel safe because you're totally accepted. And so we're just both getting high on each other. So I'm in self-abandonment and I'm also in neediness. You know, I'm acting like I can't take care of my own needs. You know, the relief that I feel around this drug of choice for me. And I don't need to take care of myself anymore. You are the magical drug that makes it all better. So I'm in denial. So self-abandonment, neediness, denial, boundaryless, fantasy, expectations, and impatience are the ones that I wrote for my drug of choice. Those are the defects of character that come with that acting out behavior for me. So I want you to invite each of you to take a look at the one that you identified and list some defects of character around that for you. And we're going to go ahead and give, let's give like 5 minutes for this.
All right,
Does that seem reasonable?
5 minutes.
Okay. I just typed those defects of character in the chat for anybody that somebody was asking for that. So I just listed them out there.
Time, 3 minutes is up,
Great.
or 5 minutes.
Thanks, Lori. Okay, so so the next piece of this is that I want you to create a boundary for yourself around this using behavior. And you could adopt the boundary that's in the authentic relationships, but maybe just make it a little bit more specific and personalized. So let's do 3 minutes for that, Lori.
Okay.
Can you help with that? Thanks.
Sure.
Sorry, Heidi, sorry to interrupt you. I don't fully understand.
So we're going to set a boundary now. So for mine, I guess I'll just give my example. So instead of talking with you for hours about our traumatic past, and we both come from dysfunctional families, and I feel like I've known you all my life and you're my soulmate, instead I take my time to get to know you. And I do not stay in relationships with active addicts who are emotionally unavailable and avoidant. So that's, you know, how I interpret that. What do I need to do to arrest that addiction for me, or that addictive behavior for me?
Thank you. That made it clear. Yeah.
Someone on the chat has asked for me to repeat that, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So the idea is for you to make a boundary for yourself based on this acting out behavior, this addictive behavior, this how you act out around the codependency in love addiction or love avoidance. So the boundary that I created was I take my time getting to know you, and I do not stay in relationships with active addicts who are emotionally unavailable and avoidant. So it's like, that's my bottom line. That's my no matter what. That's my not relapsing. And that's how I prevent that behavior, where I make up a story that we're so connected and we're so perfect for each other, and, you know, keep recycling that story, and then stay in a painful relationship that doesn't take care of me, that doesn't serve my needs, where I get into more and more self-abandonment to medicate the relationship. And then of course you're getting triggered too. So it's just, you know, addiction.
Hi.
Let's just leave another minute.
All right.
Thanks. Okay. All right, let's all come back. I hope that was helpful to you, but you know, this is the place in our recovery where we own our stuff, and then, you know, we decide what to turn over to our higher power, and what our vision for ourselves is, and how we want to become available to have healthy, loving relationships, which is why we come to CODA. I cannot have a loving, healthy relationship if I'm still attached to these old behaviors, and if I'm still attached to medicating shame, if I'm still attached to how it's always worked for me and what I've done to feel uncomfortably comfortable. So I've got to break out of those old patterns and get vulnerable. I've got to take risk. I've got to communicate. I've got to try something different. And it might look messy, and it has for me. But that's the only way that I can truly change, you know, and hopefully we end up with, you know, some progress, more progress than pain in our journey of trying new things out. And ultimately everybody is just our guinea pig, you know. Relationships are a place where we practice this stuff. So I just want to say a prayer to all of you, that you're able to, you know, take this stuff in and make some healthier choices for yourself, and work the steps on love addiction and love avoidance specifically. It does not heal itself. I very much had to work the steps on love addiction, very specific to love addiction, like 4 separate times. I have worked the steps just on love addiction. And that's how I've come to a place where I understand me better. I understand what's happening in my head. I understand where I'm in self-abandonment. And then when I arrest that stuff, then I can start taking care of that little girl that shows up, and she's just buried under those layers of addiction. So, so the next thing that I want to talk about, and this is really the final piece of the workshop, is withdrawal. So those of you that are love addicts and have experienced the pain of ending a relationship, or someone else ending a relationship, or having a bomb dropped in the middle of your life, that things are not what you thought they were, or the way you had convinced yourself that they were. For me, it was devastating. And it was a way worse withdrawal than my meth addiction. And I went for a very long time, just, you know, I mean, like I was in so much pain that when I prayed, and I had a very strong spiritual program from my Narcotics Anonymous program, and I had 8 years clean and sober. So I was definitely, I was in a program, I was working a recovery program, I had a sponsor, I was surrounded by people in recovery. But I was in so much pain that when I prayed, it was like praying to a black hole. I could not get conscious contact with my higher power. I knew God was there. Like, I still had faith in that. I didn't think God went anywhere, but I definitely felt abandoned because I had pulled God into all my fantasy about the relationship and how amazing we were and how perfect that we got clean. And you know, now, and we had this big NA wedding and all these people came, and, you know, like, we were just so blessed, and that just became part of the fantasy that I was carrying around. And so when all of that fantasy shattered and I felt like I shattered, you know, I definitely could lean into some things that I'd learned in program, like just, you know, 5 minutes at a time was absolutely necessary, and just focus on the next right thing and keep coming back, and don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. And I had to live that way for quite a while because I was in so much pain. You know, I had taken my whole life and well-being and wrapped it around this person so much that when that fantasy was shattered, my brain had no conceivable way of producing serotonin or dopamine, like zero. I was completely dopamine and serotonin depleted. So I could not be happy about normal things. I couldn't just feel joy. You know, like I was just absolutely in withdrawal. There's just no other way to describe it. And I wanted to die. I didn't really want to die. I just wanted the feelings to end. When I would go in my head and try to fix the problem, which is what I had done my whole life, just go make up another story, there wasn't anything there that I could even work with. So I did a lot of raging. That one-up energy it medicated it a little bit. It really didn't even fix it. It just kind of got me through. And, you know, just did a lot of crying and then just really dove into the steps. So, God, I hope nobody out there has a bottom as bad as that was going on right now. But if you do, there is hope and you can get through it. I did. And many other people that I know and have worked with and have supported and, you know, and gathered strength from. We are not alone, and we don't do this alone. But what I did want to do is to talk a little bit about that, because that's a huge part of my story, and also to give people some tools for getting through withdrawal. So, you know, first, in order to get into withdrawal and stop being in active addiction, we have to, I'm going to go through and read what's on the screen now. We must first define using behaviors in order to know what to surrender to our higher power and what abstinence is for us. And so that definitely is going to be supported by a relationship with a sponsor, talking about it with other people that are in love addiction, love avoidance, recovery. If we keep it all in our heads and to ourselves, nobody's going to be able to intervene. You know, this is a slippery drug. You know, it's just our thoughts. And it's that, you know, like the masks that we put on, like nobody knew, including me, that I was doing that for 30 years. You know, if I don't start talking about what's going on between my ears, nobody can intervene. The insanity is not going to show up. So that, you know, that first step and the powerlessness and the unmanageability around it, you know, getting that out there on the table, talking to people that understand love addiction is so critical. Catch the using thought as soon as you see it and ask your higher power to remove it. I was terrified when I hit bottom in that relationship with Ken that brought me to Coda. I was terrified. Even after all that I had been through, I was afraid of going back. I was absolutely terrified of relapsing. There was still a part of my brain that was it was like a place in my brain I could go that still had the euphoria, the euphoric recall, the whole fantasy, the whole story. And this bottom really just kind of even amped it up even more. Like I knew if I picked that up again and got back into that story and reconnected with him and went back into the relationship, that I probably wouldn't make it out alive. I probably would take myself out if it amped up anymore. I would probably end up killing myself. So it was absolutely critical that I not pick up again. You know, I mean, it always is important not to pick up again, no matter what, you know, what addiction we're using, because of the self-abandonment. But I really felt like my life was on the line. Like if I relapsed and got back together with him at this point, and then it fell apart again, and I found out, you know, more crazy stuff, that I probably wouldn't make it out of that. So I had to do everything I could to stay clean. Surrender now, wherever you are, and eventually you can intervene before you even start. So there's no time out there when I have to figure this out first and then I'll surrender. I just have to surrender now. I just have to stop. I just have to turn it over. I just have to give it to God. I just have to back up. I just have to have boundaries. I just have to have my feelings. There's no more figure it out and get on top of it, get it under control, and then I can surrender it. That's exactly the opposite of what surrender is. But it's what my brain kept on saying that I needed to do. So just surrender now, wherever you are in the process. It doesn't matter at what stage you're at, or what your love addiction looks like, or what your love avoidance looks like. You just surrender now and say, I just can't keep doing this. Identifying patterns of using, where, who, what, and when, so you know what to surrender and where you're vulnerable. And, you know, every time I come across this, it's like I discovered that my favorite place to use was when I was commuting in my car. When I was driving to work in the morning, or I was driving home, or I was driving to a meeting, or wherever I was driving. That was like my favorite place to use, was in the car. And, you know, I literally would get in the car and amp myself up about, you know, get the fantasy going, get the glow going, make up the stories, reminisce, pull in euphoric recall, and make someone who they weren't, you know, and make us all okay. And then on the way home, same thing, you know, that I could totally make up a story about how tonight me and Ken were going to connect, and we were going to talk, and I would cook dinner, and how our night would go. And I would put all this big fantasy on what the night would look like. And I'd walk in the door, and immediately the fantasy would be shattered, and I'd go straight into villainizing him, and, you know, go in my room and start pouting and build a case, you know. And this was my life on this hamster wheel, you know. So, you know, identifying that when I'm in the car and I'm commuting is a really slippery place for me to be was critical for me to be able to say, okay, I'm going to get in the car. That means I need to reach out to a recovery person. That means I need to not go up in my head. It means that I need to be present. I need to be conscious. I need to be aware of my feelings. I need to, you know, one of the things that I did to intervene on that was to put like a book on CD, you know, in my truck, you know, and I would just listen to a book that would keep my mind occupied so that I didn't take off and start obsessing about things. Friday nights for a lot of addicts is a really dangerous place for love addiction, you know, like imagining or, you know, your experience being that, you know, weekends or times when you get together with people and you go on a date and you get to have sex and you get to play and it's all exciting and whatever. So as that Friday's coming, being aware that you have that urge building or that need building inside you, and planning for something healthy to do during that time when you know that you're in danger. Join an addiction specific 12-step fellowship like SLAA, that's Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, or SAA, Sex Addicts Anonymous, or COSA, co-sex addiction, codependence, I don't remember what it is, COSA. So I went to a few SLAA meetings and did some time in COSA. Most of my recovery has been in CODA, and just worked the steps in CODA around the love addiction. For me, that's been what's worked, and also a lot of counseling. Grow yourself up. Addiction is always your wounded child without proper parenting. So if you find yourself in those, in addict thinking, if you find yourself in fantasy building, if you find yourself in the desire to use, call on your parent, take care of that little kid. That little kid is having needs. That little kid just wants to feel medicated. You know, for me, it's about like pulling her in and talking to her about her feelings, asking her what's coming up for her, and reassuring her that she's lovable, that we'll find a healthy relationship at some point. Right now is not the time for that. Right now, it's the time to heal. And having boundaries with her, firm and loving boundaries, but allowing her to have her feelings. Pray for the desire to use to be lifted every morning and journal nightly with your inner child or God. And I like to think of that as bookending. And that's just a recovery term that, you know, where we keep ourselves safe, where we, you know, we have a starting point of our vulnerability and an ending point of our vulnerability. And we make sure that we put, that we interject safety, you know, at both ends of that. Well, when you're in withdrawal, pretty much that's the whole day. So I bookend my whole day with, you know, prayer in the morning and journaling nightly with my inner child or my higher power. Confront the addictions, shame-based lies, and do power work. So moving that energy out of that like big tension, that big ball of shame that comes up in our gut, you know, that like fear of abandonment can be absolute trauma and bring up PTSD. It sure does for me, where I am coming out of my skin, my skin will even get super tingly. I start to disassociate in my brain. Actually, I just experienced that earlier this week to a small degree. Any degree is not a very fun degree, but I spent time with one of my sisters up in Flagstaff last weekend, and we ended up sharing about some childhood abuse that I went through, and I talked to her about some memories that I had and got very specific, got into the details about it. And I felt fine while it was happening. It was kind of yucky, but it also felt very healing and very connecting with her. And I felt good about that. That night when I fell asleep in bed, I bawled my eyes out and released a lot of pain and was there for me and loved me through it, you know, where another layer of the onion, you know, needs to be worked through. And I honor that every time it comes up. Not perfectly, but I do that work for me. I matter. And there's, you know, there's no other way. If I just put it off till later, I'm going to just have to deal with it later, plus another layer of shame because I self-abandoned. I understand shame now, so I know how to take care of it better. And then the next day, I started to have some disassociation. And it, you know, it felt like I'm not all there. I'm kind of loopy. I feel sort of numb. I feel kind of not in my body. I used to live that way. I spent years of my life like that. Thank God I've healed it where that's not how I live all the time. So when it does happen to me, I'm like, oh, that's what that is, because now I have a relationship with what that means. And I'm able to do some things to get grounded. I reached out to my support group. I talked to my little girl. I use affirmations like I am safe, I am enough. It's 2020, I'm an adult woman, I can protect myself. And those things have become great tools for me and make a big difference. The other thing that this talked about power work, and that's where we take all that energy and move it out of our system with either growling, or we can do it with big shame statements. I release this shame, I release this fear, I am no longer a victim, and we can just belt that stuff out and cleanse it from our system, and then get that breath of fresh air, and that our energy kind of just settles down, and, you know, be comfortable being with ourselves after we've released, you know, all that shame, that toxic shame that comes up, and the anxiety around managing it and holding on to it. Okay, Linda, I'm ready to go to the next slide. Thank you. So identify your feelings behind the desire, and that means the desire to use, and care for them. So that's where we're being soothing and reassuring, comforting and validating, you know, again, like often my addict is my little kid, my little kid needing something, and that triggers the addict. And so I've got to get past the addict to the little kid and say, what are you feeling? What's coming up? And let them know that it's okay, that they're safe in my care. I'm not going to let anything bad happen to them, that feelings aren't facts, that they're just feelings and they will leave and life will get better and we're going to be okay. And that I'm there for them and they matter to me more than anything. And I've learned that language over time. That didn't all come to me naturally in the beginning. It felt stupid and awkward to talk to my little kids. I felt embarrassed and ashamed of even doing it. Those are things that were taught to me. And so I encourage you to start that language with you if you haven't already, to be able to tune in to what that little girl needs inside, that little boy needs, and offer them that and give them that sincerely from the bottom of your heart and unconditionally. And that is how I have created for myself, what I always deserved to have and should have been taught, which is that I am safe being me. I am safe in me. And that my world is safe and that I deserve to create a safe and loving, warm and welcoming life for myself. We all do. Absolutely. Okay, so next one is say the Serenity Prayer and put your object of addiction and the addiction in your God box. So write down that person that you're powerless over. Write down that person that you can't let go of, that you're having a lot of pain around, that you're having a lot of resentment around, and put them in your God box, and let yourself have your snipey little attitude and whatever, but your higher self and your higher power are going to, walk you down that path of what healing looks like, to forgive and let go and take your power back to take care of yourself. Nobody has our power unless we give it to them as adults. Somebody just texted, what is a God box? Let's see. Here's one. Actually, I think Mary Beth made me this one. It's basically a cigar box. This one is a cigar box. And it's a place where you can decorate it and then put amazing things in it. You can put your hopes and dreams in it. You can put things you want to surrender to your higher power. This one says change is beautiful. And it says understanding and wonderful and cherish and dream and inspire and shine bright and embrace and make today amazing and be and wonder and believe. It's really cool. And we do God box workshops here in the events committee in Phoenix. So if you get a chance to come to one of those, or you can just go to Michael's and get all your own stuff. It's a sacred place that you can put what's on your heart and give it to your higher power. Surround yourself with reminders, sticky notes, phone banner, affirmations, set an alarm on your phone to pray. That was really powerful for me. My obsession, addiction to thinking and rethinking and rehashing. Oh, it's 4:05. I'll wrap up, guys. And, is like, it doesn't need permission. It's just going to jump in there and start making shit up and start talking and start, taking over my life. So I need to be reminded constantly. There's not too much that I can do to intervene on the addiction of obsession. So those are useful. Redirecting, fill your mind with other thoughts to break the addictive thinking. So work is good, talking to friends, do activities with others, watching TV, reading, audio CDs, hobby sports. And even if a choice is not the best self-care, like gaming or addictively doing anything is probably not the best self-care. Going to the gym every day can be self-abandonment as well. But even if it's not the best self-care, you can get better balance later after you've gotten through withdrawal. So do what you got to do to get through withdrawal, short of, you know, relapsing on heroin or something. Love addiction withdrawal is brutal. And if you're in that place of pain, you can make it out, and you're worth it, and keep fighting for you. And really, that's all I have, you guys. I'm done.
Thank you.
Yay, Heidi, thank you so much. You are amazing. And I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Heidi has been of service to us and in so many beautiful ways. And so I would like everybody to just send her some loving intentions, and you may give her some gratitude in the chat box. We can take 5 minutes if you would like to share your experience or just some gratitude with Heidi. Let's take 5 minutes to do that. Raise your little blue hand and I will call on you. And you can stop sharing the screen now if you want. There you are. Hi. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Rachel, you have like a minute or two.
Hey, I'm Rachel, codependent in Tucson. Thank you so much. This is like the first time I'm really like dipping into CODA. I have some time in AA and I've been working SLAA, and I just related to your story and the solutions, and your recovery is amazing. So thanks for having me, and I'll definitely be coming back to CODA.
Thanks, Rachel. Glad you found us.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, Tucson, we have great events out there too. Heidi goes out there, and we have a great community out there.
Yes.
All right, Chris. Show Heidi some love. Let's see.
Hi, Heidi. I'm Chris in Tucson, and I just want to thank you so much for doing this workshop. I've been going to a number of the series, and I appreciate a new understanding of peeling the onion. I'd read it before, but I didn't really understand it like I can do now. And that's about all. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Welcome.
You're in Tucson?
Yes.
Okay. Good group of people down there.
Yeah. I'm from New York originally.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
Oh, great. New York in the house.
Woohoo! I know Jean's from New York also. Yeah. Let's see.
Hey, Christina, can I want to go ahead and give people my number again if they didn't get it from the chat earlier. So I'm going to put it in the chat, and I'll say it out loud too.
Okay, and then also add your email address if you're comfortable with that. And we are going to have this workshop on a PDF. So all of this is going to be available, so don't worry, everybody. We will have that at azcoda.org when I think Linda's going to upload that. Rachel.
Let me just say I'm going to say my phone number in case people are just on their phone and just doing the audio and they can't see the chat room. So it's 602-460-8284.
Thanks, Heidi.
All right.
Chris.
Hi. Oh, I just went.
Chris already shared, Christina.
Oh, did he? Oh,
yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi again, Chris.
Hi, Chris. Bye, Chris. Okay, Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia, codependent.
Hi, Julia.
Hi. Thank you so much. I just want to confirm the first part of your email is LOVISAL?
Yes.
Okay. I just was like, was there supposed to be another L? Thank you so much.
Weird.
Amazing workshop. And I had a question. I really identified with some things you were saying about getting in the car and then, you know, having these fantasies about, so I often, what I'm often dealing with is like kind of the opposite thing. Like I am maybe going to or leaving whatever thing, and I'm in a really just like this terrible compulsive shame spiral, thinking that everybody thinks terrible things about me. And so I'm just wondering whether you see that as like a flip side of the same coin, or I'm not.
Definitely.
Great
Yeah.
words.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's just like any addiction that, you know, when I'm intentionally going to get high, but then the addiction takes over, that then I'm powerless over using, and my brain has all this, you know, authority to just spew crap at me, and I have no boundaries around it because because I'm boundaryless because I'm a fantasy addict. So so it totally turns on us, you know, that I get to go make up stories, but when that drug stops working, whoo, I'm in a shame spiral right down into the I'm a piece of shit, and then now I'm a victim, and now I'm nobody loves me, and you know, people are trying to, you know, get away from me, or you know, I mean, the shame or in my brain, and you know, just starts making up stories that I interpret as the truth, because that's what I'm trained to do. I haven't developed, you know, as when I'm in active fantasy addiction, I haven't developed boundaries where my thoughts have to, you know, pass by my grown up, or you know, they have to be filtered through my grown up that says, well, that's true, well, that's not true, well, that has some weight, or that may have some truth in it, but it's not entirely true. And when I don't have an adult on board, my shame is just sitting there beating me up. And then it's just that pain is going to lead me to going to get high again. So then I'm going to call out the positive fantasy about stuff. You know, here's the plan, here's what I'll go do, here's how I'll make it all better, you know, and then putting people on pedestals again, and you know, making up a big story about how I'm going to be the center of attention, or you know, whatever the fantasy story is. And then when the drug stops working, and I start going into a shame spiral, that shame is going to take that same fantasy addiction and turn it against me. Does that make any sense?
Yes, so much. Thank you. Amazing.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome. Take care of you.
Thanks.